Welcome to Module 1C, Conjunctions, Prepositions, and Interjections. In this section, we will be talking about the last three parts of the 8 parts of speech, namely conjunctions, prepositions, and interjections. Let's start with conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that connect words or groups of words together. There are a few different types of conjunctions, however. Coordinating conjunctions, correlative conjunctions, and subordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions are conjunctions that connect sentence elements of the same type by using words such as for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. You can remember the acronym Fanboys to help you remember all of these conjunctions. So let's look at some examples of the types of sentence elements that coordinating conjunctions can connect together. These are the 4 different elements that coordinating conjunctions can connect: subjects, direct objects, dependent clauses, and independent clauses. In this sentence, Jack and Jill went up the hill. The subjects, Jack and Jill, are connected together to say they're both doing the same thing. They both went up the hill. In the second example, Mike read Narnia and the Hobbit. The conjunction and is connecting 2 books, Narnia and The Hobbit, as both functioning as the direct object of the verb read. In the third sentence here, the girls were scared when Matthew jumped out is a dependent clause. And when Mary screamed is a second dependent clause, both of which are connected by the conjunction and. And lastly, we have independent clauses. Andrew loved to teach. That's one independent clause. And Mike loved to grade papers. That is a second independent clause. And connects them together to form one sentence. Correlative conjunctions are conjunctions that appear in pairs and connect 2 equal sentence parts, similar to how the correlative conjunctions connect equal sentence elements. The correlative conjunctions are either or, neither nor, both and not only, but also. Here are a few examples of how these work. In our first sentence here we read, he neither liked nor appreciated the art at the museum. The correlative conjunctions neither nor connect the verbs liked and appreciated. Similarly, we see in the second sentence here, the students forgot not only to clean their room, but also to make their beds. We see the correlative conjunctions not only but also connect 2 dependent clauses to clean their room and to make their beds. And here the final example. Either John will finish his paper tonight, or he will fail the course. In this instance, we have the correlative conjunctions either or being used to connect 2 independent clauses. John will finish his paper tonight, and he will fail the course. Subordinating conjunctions are conjunctions that connect a dependent clause, also known as a subordinate clause, to an independent clause, also known as the main clause. An independent clause is a clause that can be understood and stand on its own, while a dependent clause only makes sense in relation to the independent clause. It depends on another clause for its context to be understood. Some common subordinated conjunctions include after, although, as, because, before, if, once, since, that, unless, until, when, where, and while. There are also a few phrasal subordinating conjunctions, which include as if, also includes even though, and of course so that. All of these introduce and are a part of a dependent clause. Let's look at some examples. In this first sentence here we see, John went to the park where there was a pond. Where there was a pond is a dependent clause. John went to the park is an independent clause. We can see here that the dependent clause is functioning like an adjective for the word park. It's describing the word park. In the second sentence here, Billy ran as if chased by a bear. As if introduces and is part of the dependent clause that describes the verb ran. So it's functioning like an adverb. We've already looked at some of these when we talked about adverbs and adjectives. In the last example here, Lily stayed up late because she had homework. Once again, this is functioning like an adverb for the reason why she stayed up late. It's explaining the reason behind the action. So we can see that dependent clauses function in different ways that we've already looked at when we talk about adverbs and adjectives. And they're introduced by these subordinating conjunctions. Let's talk about prepositions. Prepositions are words used to describe the relationship between the prepositional object, usually a noun or pronoun, and another word in the sentence. The prepositional object is simply the noun that follows the preposition. And we talk about a prepositional phrase, which refers to that preposition plus the prepositional object and any modifiers of that noun. There are many prepositions, but the most common include of, in, to, for, with, on, at, by, and from. There are also a few multi-word prepositions, which include according to, along with, as well as, because of, and in spite of. Let's look at some examples about how different prepositions can alter the understanding of a sentence. So this sentence here, Jake walked, can be modified with a prepositional phrase, such as, in the red house. We could choose a different preposition and it would change the meaning, such as, from the red house, or by the red house, or to the red house. You can see how the preposition alters our understanding of the verb. So we would say this prepositional phrase is functioning like an adverb. It's describing the verb and what it means. Likewise, prepositional phrases can be used to describe nouns, such as this. Jake walked in the red house by the woods. In this instance, the prepositional phrase by the woods is describing something about the house, namely its location. So you can see prepositional phrases function like adverbs or adjectives by using a specific type of phrase, namely a prepositional phrase, to give additional description. Let's talk a little bit about interjections. Interjections are words that can stand alone as their own sentence or appear alongside a sentence in which they don't play any real part. Often these express strong emotion, agreement, disagreement, greetings, farewells, politeness, hesitation, or simply introduce a subject. So let's look at some examples of these. We see in the first example here, wow, that was amazing, that the word wow is interjection, expressing strong emotion, specifically the emotion of amazement. In the second here, we see that hello is an interjection as well. It's a greeting, followed by the sentence, how are you? Which is simply a question. And we can see how some of these are just standalone. They don't have a direct influence upon the main sentence, even if they're related to it. Such as, yes, you are correct. Yes is a statement of agreement. You are correct shows what exactly the interjection is agreeing to. You can note the different type of punctuation that kind of connects the interjection to the sentence. We have an exclamation point, a period, or a comma. It's a little bit more loose on how you use these, simply to say how closely connected are they. Let's look at some more. I don't want to buy your vacuum. Goodbye. Right? In this sense, the goodbye is closing off the conversation. You could, if you thought the goodbye was a logical conclusion of the denial to buy something, say we should use a comma here versus a period. Like I said, a little bit less strict on the rules, but the function of the interjection is to add some of this information, such as a greeting or strong emotion, as we discussed previously. Like, sorry, I didn't see you. It's an interjection. Sorry is an interjection. And then following, we kind of have an explanation. I don't want any. Thanks. Once again, thanks is an interjection added on to the end. You could have a complete sentence without the thanks, but it's added in there as a kind of politeness, right? A politeness of the interjection. John introduces a new subject. It's just an interjection of someone's name. Wait for me. That is a complete sentence. It's a command. But we see that John is the interjection introducing new information, new subject into the situation here. What's kind of key to know about interjections is simply that these are words that can stand alone. They're not strictly speaking specific categories. Certain words make it in. Like we said, there's many different types of interjections. It's kind of the final catch-all term used for these standalone words that function almost independent of other words. Ultimately, it's important to note that both conjunctions and prepositions highlight logical relationships between words and clauses. It is important to know how words and clauses relate to one another, because if one can understand and use these parts of speech properly and precisely, one can begin to make more complex arguments and ideas. Mastering the use of coordinate and subordinate conjunctions will help one write more persuasive and understandable papers, which is helpful because ultimately one of the primary purposes of reading and writing is to understand and be understood. So mastering these parts of speech will help you in that endeavor. Thank you for watching this short video on prepositions, conjunctions, and interjections. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave some comments below and let us know what we can do to help. And as always, keep on keeping on.